obviously were biased going in. You obviously didn't believe him going in, and nothing he said made you believe him. So I guess the question is like, why even interview him if you're going to go into it like that? Because you kind of, sucker punched him at the end by not giving him the information that you accused him of, that you used as proof that he was lying. You waited till 4 minutes to the end to present it. It's like, that made you look really bad. He's like, well, we argued a little bit back and forth, and then I was like, no, it's like, it's okay to be biased.
What did he say? What like he was claiming that he wasn't biased?
He was like, no, I'm biased, but like I allowed him to answer the questions, and I gave him the opportunity to speak. I'm like, yeah, but you presented data, you presented evidence right at the very end when you knew he had to leave. He told you he had to leave. And you're like, oh, by the way, you're lying because your website. And I'm like, okay, so in the future, and I said, I'm telling you this as a learning experience about what worked and what didn't work for you, but also for myself as podcasters, because it's like, it's obviously we're going to be biased about stuff. We're going into this with biases, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if we're going to go into it totally biased trying to take someone down, we should at least be honest with them at the beginning and say, this is why I don't believe you, or say, I don't believe you, and these are the reasons why. So let's talk about that. So at least give him the respect to know that you don't believe him and that you're going to go over the points and you're going to allow him to address those points. Because in my mind, it's like, why else would you fucking interview the person then if you don't believe him and you're not going to give him a chance to like really defend himself about the stuff you don't believe him in?
Yeah, he had to. I mean, he had to interview him because he's basically making a documentary about Mt. Gox, but it's his story, really. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And speaking of biases, can I introduce the show? We're Keyword Crypto.
Do it, baby.
I'm JJ.
I'm Michael.
And I'm here with Michael. And this is a show about biases. No, this is a show where we kind of episodically try to get to the bottom of something related to cryptocurrency. And lately we've been on this kick where we can't seem to find a good reason. We can't seem to find someone to tell us why Bitcoin isn't a plutocracy. And by that we mean we're having trouble seeing Bitcoin as not having a centralized problem around the miners. I think there's a lot. I find that people talk about this problem a lot, but they gloss over it as if it's like, oh yeah, that's just one problem with Bitcoin. It's not a big deal. But we can't seem to like get any traction from anyone about this problem.
Not Satoshi. That's not his actual handle. That's just what he calls himself. He replied to me today. He follows us, and he said he tagged some people who are maximalists, and he said, hey, maybe these people can help out, because he's like, I don't understand. I can't answer it.
Yeah. Well,
but it's the first person who honestly said. And to be fair to the other people and the trolls who have tried to troll me, I adjusted the daily tweet I've been doing, so it's now a thread, and it gives information from Bitcoin.org's own website that shows that unless you're running the Bitcoin Core wallet, which can only be run on a computer and takes a couple hundred gigabytes of data to download, you're not using a trustless wallet. So it says on their own website, if you're using anything but the Bitcoin Core wallet on your computer, you are trusting a third party. It's not a trustless system at that point.
Well, everybody's going to have a certain amount of autonomy that they'll give up. But anyway, before we get too deep into it, I just wanted to let new listeners know that one of the reasons that you probably want to subscribe to this podcast is that Michael and I are crypto owners. We're fans of crypto, but we're skeptics, and we'll always be asking questions about something that doesn't make sense to us. And so in a sea of crypto space, crypto Twitter, crypto YouTube, you get so many people that are just kind of blindly following the Bitcoin, blindly following their altcoins. And I think it's really important to have a couple voices in there that are saying, hold on a minute. You're putting all your faith into what now? Like, yeah, okay. But like, all right. So you follow as many day traders as you want, as many Antonopolises as you want, as many crypto Cobains as you want. But keep in mind that you're going to want some people you're going to want some Bitcoiners that actually have something to say about this. And that's why today we wanted to talk about these sort of crypto journalists. We talk a lot about other YouTubers and personalities on Twitter. We talk about this occasionally because we're in that world. But we've been following the What Bitcoin Did podcast, which is an amazing podcast. It's really well done. And the recent Mt. Gox series where Peter is interviewing people who were and are associated with Mt. Gox now. So everyone from Mark Karpelès, who is kind of, the Darth Vader of Mt. Gox, and or the Joker, I don't know. And then Jed McCaleb, who's at Stellar now, but he is the guy who began it, and just the whole history of Mt. Gox. However, we're talking about how it seems that no matter how impartial you come across in this space, you're always going to have some narrative. You're always going to have some story you're trying to tell, some bias towards something. And we know that Peter considers himself a maximalist. And by Bitcoin maximalist, I mean you believe in Bitcoin, but not altcoins. I think that Bitcoin maximalists think that all altcoins are scams, right? I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Or they just think that they're pointless, that Bitcoin is the one true coin. Yeah, and so he's a self-proclaimed reformed, or he's recently reformed to become a minimalist, maximalist, a Bitcoin maximalist. He believes in Bitcoin, and so when he interviews people, we know that he already has a bias like that, and we were just pointing out that his interview of Brock Pierce seemed.
He went in with an agenda.
Yeah. But it's not, if you're listening to him, it might not be that obvious because Peter's got this calm voice and he sounds
and he's English.
He's British. He sounds very fair. Like Peter, if you're listening, you sound very fair.
Yeah.
But we can tell that there's something in the back of your mind when one of your interviewees says, this is what I'm putting forth. This is my intent. This is my intention. And
to be fair, JJ texted me today. I'm sitting in my car and I get a text from JJ. He's like, holy shit, did you hear the Brock Pierce interview? And I was like, no, he's like, fucking like meltdown. Like he's screaming and ranting and blah, blah. So I went into it expecting that to happen. So instead of waiting for it to happen, I waited for the triggers. I started looking for the triggers that were causing it ahead of time. So I had the ability to do it, and that's kind of why I went at it from the way I went at it today when I was listening to it, just because I had that heads up. So, and I noticed the triggers, and they were consistent. He kept on, like, Brock kept on saying, "This is what I want," and Peter would be like, it just doesn't seem like you're being honest about what you want. He's like,
why should I trust you?
I don't know how else to say this. This is what I want. Yeah, but just to be honest, like I don't really trust you. It doesn't seem like you're telling me what you really want. And then with 4 minutes left, 6 minutes, something like that, Brock's like, yo, I really gotta go. I can't continue this fucking like cycle of you not listening to what I'm saying. Peter goes, what about the website?
Yeah.
And then so that was his gotcha moment about like, see, here's proof that you're lying. And me and Peter were talking for a little bit on Twitter. And I just said, look, it's fine to go in with an objective, but bring up the website first, so that way we don't waste our time listening to an hour-long conversation of you saying, I don't believe you, and him saying the same thing over and over again. Because literally for 45 minutes, that's what it was. Like nothing really got addressed. And the stuff that I really wanted to hear the conversation about was the website. It got glossed over in 4 minutes because he had to go. And so he never really got into the meat of the actual interview. And I just felt like it was kind of a waste of my time. And I don't always feel that way with Peter's interviews. So that's the reason I actually felt the need to reach out to him on Twitter this time, was because first off, he asked, he said, hey, anybody listening, reach out, let me know what you think. But also it's like, I felt like he deceived Brock in this interview. He kind of baited him and then accused him of lying. And then when Brock, understandably gets heated about being accused of lying, he's like, why are you getting so heated? And then at the end, he's like, he got heated, so that's proof that he's lying. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
I'm not sure he said that, but he was, I think that Peter, at the end of the interview, he said, I really didn't like this interview. I don't think it came out that great. I don't think that Peter felt like there was a real resolution from that at all. Oh yeah,
and that's why I felt that I was like, and I said, you can go on Twitter and you can see, I said, look, this is a learning process for everybody. I'm giving you these notes, not just for you, but also for me and JJ to learn from. So when we do interviews, we don't do this where, give the meat at the beginning, allow the person to digest a little bit, and then have the conversation about that stuff. Don't blindside somebody 4 minutes. At the
I
end
don't
of the
know,
article.
but that doesn't really seem like Peter's style. I really feel like Peter is trying to get truth from these guests. It seems odd to me that I'm not sure if I totally agree that I mean, it doesn't seem like Peter would do that. It seems like,
well, I mean, he did.
But to just to try to make a fool out of Brock, that doesn't, to leave it till the end like that, there's not going to be any resolution. That's why it wouldn't really make sense for Peter to do that.
See, that's why I said it really came across like you had an agenda and you were trying to tell a story, because you didn't go after Mark, but you really went after Brock. And Mark's the one who actually broke the law and was in jail. And Brock's the guy who's like, he's a showboater. He's an egomaniac. He obviously has some kind of,
he's an easy target.
Angel, whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm saving people down.
Yeah,
Puerto Rico.
Savior complex. But he actually really hasn't done anything illegal, and he hasn't done anything in my mind that's even remotely immoral.
He may have done some things illegal, but we don't know.
with Mount Gox?
No, just kidding. We don't really know.
Yeah. So my thing is when you're saying, oh, I believe Mark, and Brock's like, his company has a request out for all the Bitcoin. Why do you believe him?
Yeah.
And then Peter doesn't address that. I'm like, this just seems kind of fishy. The whole interview seemed fishy to me.
So I know that you haven't listened to some of the other interviews, but I feel like one of the great things, when I listen to those interviews, what I hear is I don't hear Peter's agenda, and I don't even hear the story of Mount Gox. What I get is this kind of puzzle that comes together of all these fucking weird ass personalities. Because that's really what it is. It seemed like it was this kind of weird passive aggressive thing. Hearing Jed talk about passing off or handing over the keys of Mount Gox to Mark, and how he knew that it was going to be kind of a problem. And then the interview with Mark was so strange, because I feel like Peter didn't even have to go in there with an agenda, because Mark just immediately was just kind of deflecting everything. Before Peter even could ask him a question, I think the first question that Peter asked him was, "How are you doing?" And then Mark just was like, "Blah, this is what happened to Mount Gox." And then Peter's like, "Well, actually, I just meant how's your day?"
Just in general.
just are you enjoying your life?
Did you listen to it or did you watch it? Because that was a video.
I didn't watch it. I listened to it. I should watch it. I actually listened to it a couple times.
Mark is like a fucking robot.
That's what made. So this is my
Wow.
take on it. This is my reaction. You're watching a reaction. You're listening to a reaction of the Mark Carpella's interview. So
And if you don't know, Mark Carpelas is the guy who bought Mt. Gox from Jed McCaleb and then kind of ran it into the ground.
Yeah,
and
if
that's
you
when all
don't
the
know
stuff happened.
if you don't know what Mt. Gox is, then
Look
Google
it up, dude.
Google it.
It's
It's kind of like the big history of Bitcoin in a way. It's
Yeah.
one of the reasons that Anyway, so what I got from that is that Mark Carpelas is a guy who this is what I made up of him in my head. This is a guy who probably got very self-conscious about the fact that he took on something that was way bigger than he could deal with. And like he probably made himself seem like he's more competent than he actually was, which a lot of people do. A lot of people do that, and they do that successfully, and that works well for them. But a guy who basically had things start to collapse around him probably knew that he was breaking the law, whether he intended to do it or not, and he had to keep things quiet. He had to basically lie about things. So this is a guy who has had to lie, who has had to be very careful about what he's said. He's had to be very careful about who knows what, because he's dealing with security issues as well as things that might put him in prison for a very long time. So this is just a guy for the last 4 years has been basically freaking out in his head about what to tell people. That's all he's been doing every single day that he was in solitary confinement. I mean, he was in solitary confinement, basically. He was in detention in a room with no windows where no one could talk to him. He's just sitting there going, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? What do I say?
18 months, he said?
What do I say? What do I say? What do I say? As soon as somebody comes to me, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? So if you put him in an interview, he's just going to go, oh, so this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. And that's just what came out. He just regurgitated everything that's been in his head. Now, to top it off, he's a pretty weird guy. When Brock was talking about how he was actually a pastry chef, and he was more focused on that than running the biggest Bitcoin exchange in the world.
Yeah.
He was I want to make, cupcakes.
And Peter has very poignantly said, hey, back then Bitcoin was worth 6 cents.
Yeah.
or 50 cents. Who the fuck cared back then?
Yeah. It's
but now in hindsight, it seems epic proportions, but back then people were like, hey, you just had 50 Bitcoin stolen. You're
yeah,
who fucking cares?
So here's something I should say. To put this in perspective, Mt. Gox stands for Magic the Gathering Online Exchange. So this is if all of a sudden you're comic books were worth $1 billion, and you happen to have a ton of them, and you were actually storing them for friends, and then they all got stolen, and then you got left holding the bag. It's basically like that. Nobody really had any idea that this was going to become as big as it was. However, and this was the thing that was kind of I don't know if I like Jed McCaleb's story here, because he basically handed over this ticking time bomb of a business that Jed probably knew was not going to go very well. I mean, there was already $50,000 worth of, how much?
Yeah, $50,000.
$50,000 worth of Bitcoin missing, which is not a lot, but if Jed had any idea that was going to turn into millions, then, I mean, that's a big thing to hand off to somebody who may not know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that was pretty irresponsible of him. A guy who's kind of revered in the crypto community as being, the person who founded Ripple and Stellar. I'm not sure if I got that right. Did he actually create Ripple? He did. Okay, so he's responsible for creating Ripple. And then hearing him talk in an interview is kind of man, these are the founders of our revered cryptocurrency. These are the guys. They're the reasons that we are here now.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
But, to defend Jeb a little bit, people grow, people evolve, and 10 years ago or 5 years ago, when he's got into,
he was 21
Gox,
years old. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so when so he's just what the fuck? This is like 6 cents. What am I doing? I don't want to do this. Get out of that. I've already had theft. I don't want to deal with this shit. And then he gets into Ripple and tries to create something. And Brad Garlinghouse is like, we're going to centralize this and rule the world. And he's like, what the fuck? I don't want to do this either. So like he actually went out and created something that he wanted to create, which seems to me like I'm trying to give him the benefit of what he's just created as the type of person he is, that he wants to decentralize it. He wants to make it a nonprofit, that he wants to not have it be like a corporate thing. So I'm trying to judge him based on that, because that's the evolution that has led him to where he is now. And so I don't really want to be like the armchair quarterback of, you should have done this 5 years ago when Bitcoin was, worth nothing and blah, blah.
I don't want to judge these guys much at all. I mean, 5 years ago, man, if you gave me a podcast 5 years ago, I probably would have fucked it up. Like, I mean, we're talking about something actually very, very complicated that people knew nothing about. These are pioneers, and like, and where did crypto come from? It was like basically it was darknet money. It wasn't like. Yeah.
And to be clear, we've already fucked up this podcast a couple of times and had to start over, so we shouldn't be talking.
Yeah. So yeah, well, we're right. Okay. So yeah. So anyway, so one of the things one of the reasons that this talking about this is really important is it puts things in perspective, because oftentimes, and if you're new to crypto, and you're probably going to hear about Mt. Gox, you're going to hear it as go down as something that like happened in the Middle Ages of Bitcoin, which it pretty much did. However, the crazy thing is that this wasn't like 40 years ago. This was 5 years ago. This wasn't like during the Great Depression. This was only a few years ago. Like we were all around then. We were all alive. We were all doing something. I mean, it feels like it was just so long ago because most of us weren't around then. It feels like a legend or something.
Yeah.
Or it feels
and
like
I really like what Brock
Pierce like
said.
The Genesis.
Like what Brock said in the interview. He's like, we had this spectacular meltdown that cost pretty much everybody who was involved in Bitcoin some Bitcoins, because pretty much everybody was using this and everybody had stuff on it.
It's the only exchange, yeah.
And nothing's changed.
That's the scariest thing. And that's, you know what? And, oh man,
I mean, the dude, look, I've got so many issues with the way he presents himself to the world and his egomaniac stuff, but like a lot of the stuff he says is pretty spot on.
Well, and you know what? If he's got a crazy ego and he's a megalomaniac or whatever, like, I mean, if, you can dig into what are his real intentions, what are his ulterior motives, but like if he really just does what he said, like when you hear him talk about how he's gonna like bring all of this like greatness, bring all of this money and wealth down to Puerto Rico and save the Puerto Rican people, which is not exactly what he said, but it was pretty much kind of sounded like that.
Well, yeah, like when he's like the angels are here.
Yeah, I know. You hate that word.
Are you talking about fucking angel investors? They're not angels. They're fucking.
But no, we call them angels.
They're fucking horrible corporatists.
And I think after he said that,
from people.
After he said that, he was like, "But it's really going to be the Puerto Rican people that save Puerto Rico," and it's like.
With my money.
With my money. But the thing is like if he actually does help the Puerto Rican economy, then good for him. If he does actually help.
And what's his goal? Not paying taxes. Great.
But you know what? Like if he helps bring some awareness to what's going on down there after the hurricane, great. It's kind of like, okay, good. I mean, if he actually wants to rebrand Mt. Gox as something that's different and something that's better. Oh, good for him. Go for it. Put in the bid.
Yeah, but he's going to a place that got that way because they don't have a tax structure, a tax-based system that allows the government to reinvest in its people and in
Michael.
In its infrastructure.
I think he's one of the phoniest people. I'm ashamed that he's associated with crypto. To be honest, Brock, if you're listening, I think you're doing great things, but like. You're very cringy at times. Just so you know that, like, if you want to tighten that up, that'd be great.
Hey, he follows us now on Twitter, so thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
it was bad
because you have so much power. You could do such great things, and I want to see it happen.
because the first tweet I defended him, and I look at my notification, it's like Brock Pierce now follows you, and then my second tweet I totally lambasted him, and I'm like, I wonder if he's going to keep following me. Or
probably not after
if
he listens to this. Yeah. So anyway, if you're new to crypto, or if you got in, when the last bull run happened in 2017, like, you're gonna hear about this stuff. You're gonna actually, to your point, Michael, about how, or actually to Brock's point about how all of this happened. This was a great windfall of crypto, and how it was supposed to teach us about things like not keeping your Bitcoin on exchanges. And that seemed to be such, I mean, there were like a few like golden rules, or not golden rules. There are a few like commandments of crypto when I first got in. Like, for instance, when I first bought into Bitcoin and I asked a friend of mine about it, the first thing he said to me was, do you have any of your Bitcoin on exchanges? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, you should probably get it off. Probably not keep your Bitcoin on exchanges. And that was just pervasive through the crypto space, was like, not your keys, not your coins. Don't keep your crypto on exchanges. I remember even hearing like Richard Hart say like, not your keys, not your coins. And then like just a couple months later, he's like, just put all your money on BitMEX and short it whenever Bitcoin falls. It's like, yeah, I mean, that goes against every rule that most people, put out there. Don't margin trade. Don't day trade at all, actually. Don't keep your money on exchanges. Don't ever give your private keys to anyone. And now what? Now it's like, just leave all your money on, or actually, here is a contradiction that I hear all the time. One is, never leave your crypto on an exchange. And then like sometimes in another second, in the same sentence, someone will say, but always use a stop loss. It's like, you can't use a stop loss if you're not on an exchange. So you can't use a stop loss and keep your Bitcoin on a hard wallet. That just doesn't happen. So basically, my point is that you're going to hear a lot of contradictions in crypto. It's just going to happen. And I won't actually tell you, don't keep your crypto on an exchange, because I do believe that there are certain times when having a custodial service for your crypto might be the best option, because some people are not going to be able to keep their crypto safe. It's probably safer with an exchange. Now, I'm not going to say that you should keep your money on an exchange either. In fact, my financial
advice.
My financial advice to you is to not buy crypto at all. Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least, no, just don't. My financial advice to everyone is to not spend your money ever on anything.
Yeah,
that's the best way to keep it.
That's the safest way to protect ourselves.
But I mean, these, like, the Mt. Gox, is arguably the reason we went through our last bear market,
last two bear markets.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at the chart and you could line it up perfectly with the last two major hacks.
What I don't get, and I guess this is beyond my knowledge as a lawyer, because I'm not one. Mt. Gox owed all these people all these Bitcoins, and I guess the agreement they worked out with Japan is they would sell all the Bitcoin and then pay people back what they were owed at the price of the hack. And I'm like, that is fucking genius.
Yeah.
So start an exchange now.
Get hacked.
Wait for it. Yeah. Let it get hacked. Keep all the Bitcoin. Sell it off at the high. Pay people back when it was low. And just keep all the rest.
There's your scam. Of course, you got to sit in prison for 18 months though.
But yeah, that's what caused and people are speculating that's what's caused this bear market to last so long, is that they were selling off massive amounts of Bitcoin throughout the year 2018, and that's what kept the bear market so prolonged.
It's a theory. It's definitely a theory.
It doesn't really hold up, but
no, it doesn't hold up. And actually, if you could make a case that actually those previous hacks were not the reason, because those hacks, I mean, every single bear market that we've had has followed a major spike. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of the belief that the bear markets and the parabolic runs are just a lot of manipulation, and it's a lot of FOMO.
It's all TA. It's all TA that's done by bots.
Yeah, I mean, and it
440 bars. I mentioned Dave, or like Dave the Wave or whatever his name is, and he's just like literally going. He's like, okay, at this point in the last bear market, this happened, and literally the next day, it goes up. And he's like, at this point, 440 bars is the exact time, this blah, blah. So in 23 more days, this is going to happen. And it happens.
Who is this?
I think it's like Dave the Wave or something like that.
He's on Twitter or something? Or?
Yeah, our account follows him.
Okay.
And he just posts these charts over and over and over again. He's like, it's just about to hit the 200-day moving average. And the next day it hits it and it bounces up and it rockets up like 12%. And so like he's literally just like he goes, this is not, he's acknowledging that it's all based on TA because there's so many bots and manipulation now in the market that, you know, people who are manipulating the market know that if it fell below the 200-day moving average, that could trigger something catastrophic. And they don't want to trigger something catastrophic. They just want to shake out the weak hands to buy more cheap Bitcoin. And then they want to pump it up, have people FOMO in, buy high, and then drop it back down and have people sell, you know.
You can definitely make a case for it. I think it's actually because it's such a small market, crypto in general. I mean, there's just not enough money in crypto.
Yeah, it's not liquid.
At this, especially in these low points, then a lot of bots and a lot of algos are going to be buying and selling based on, you know, Fibonacci retracements and moving average and trend lines and all that. Yeah. But as soon as an irrational amount of money comes in, it gets pretty crazy pretty quickly. And that's often what happens with stuff like, you know, we saw ontology pump like crazy, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, at a certain point, like all of the emotions take over, and then the bots are like, don't know what to do with emotions. But So getting back to these journalists of crypto, it's going to be interesting because we've seen in the last.
Hold on. So who do we consider journalists? Only people who have podcasts, or people like Crypto Cocaine?
I'm not even going there yet. I was just about to say that in the last few months we've saw an explosion of like podcasts in general. I'm always kind of looking for new crypto podcasts, and like I keep on noticing like there one a week. I noticed that are actually pretty good. Like, man, who is it? The Crypto Euclid, man, that guy's hilarious. I don't know if you've seen his show, but it's just comedy. It kind of reminds me of like Tim and Eric or something.
Is it YouTube or is it
crypto?
iTunes?
I think they do both. He does a show with his wife that's all about like, it's like they make fun of numerology and like mysticism in crypto. It's pretty hilarious. Okay. But he does these like 15-second longs. No, well, yeah, they basically make fun of BK. But he also does these 15. He does these like 10-second sketches that are pretty hilarious. But so these are kind of coming out of the woodwork. So when you have all these podcasts and when you have all these YouTube channels, it's really, really hard to know. Like, it's really hard to consider any of them journalists because most of them don't have any journalistic ethics, right? Most of them don't. At least when they do, it's kind of like, man, like who, like what are we like? What what's the guy's name? Like Crypto Chico, is that what's that guy's name? Like he actually like stands out on a street corner with a microphone to like make him look like he has credibility. I mean, fuck that guy. Like, I mean, these are the people who are like during the next bull run are gonna have everybody paying attention to them because they actually look like. But then like he has like I think I saw that same guy has a show. It's like crypto and beer or something like that, where he like just sits around with a beer and talks about crypto, which I think is kind of amazing. I think it's cool that those exist. But then you've got like all of these other people that we're not supposed to. How are we supposed to know if they're actually journalists, if they're actually looking for the truth?
They're not. I mean, if they were looking for the truth, I don't know. That's not true because you and I look for the truth. I feel like, and we're
it's
trying
really
to be
tough.
as honest and ethical as we possibly can be, and we try to, and I try to preface everything. I bought Nano, so from now on, if I mention Nano, know that I own some Nano, and I'll tell you when I sell it. So
Just don't mention Nano.
I love Nano. I just wish they weren't fucking so dumb when they made it.
You should never actually buy any crypto that you like, because then when you have to sell it, it really sucks. So only buy Bitcoin Cash. That's the only one that you should actually buy.
And just swing trade it. Be a day trader and lose all your money.
Just suck it up.
Bitcoin Cash.
Just buy a bunch of Satoshi Vision. Just suck it up and buy some.
He's kidding. Not financial advice.
And then when you sell it, you're just like, yeah. Okay.
Get that euphoric high every time.
So you were saying about Nano, something about. Oh yeah.
No, I just because in the past I've always like shilled it and like I don't know any Nano, but I actually bought Nano, so I wanted to be upfront.
So about journalists. Okay, so we're not journalists. We are just two guys that like talking about crypto. However, we do think, but I still think, because there are people listening to this. I think, is anyone there? Hello.
Yes.
There are people listening to this, so I feel like I have a responsibility not to say things that are too erroneous, not to spew
erroneous at all. I don't want to be erroneous at all in my real
right. And we are also like Michael says, he owns some Nano, so we want to be careful to shill things. We don't want people to accuse us of being shills. That's kind of a shitty thing. And so we don't want to talk about that. And when we do talk about things, we want there to be validity to it, and we want people to listen to us because we might have something to share that could help them. Like that's what I want to do this for. So like in that respect, we are journalists in a way.
Yeah, we're asking tough questions that people don't. Here's the thing. So JJ was like, no one's really responded to our to my daily post of is Bitcoin a plutocracy, and no one is going to. And that's kind of the point, is that it's such a walled garden that the community, the crypto space has gotten all, and you see it. It's just like it's iOS versus Android. It's Toyota versus Nissan. It's like people are treating it like they're sports teams, and people need to stop doing that, because you got to ask yourself the tough questions. Like, yes, Bitcoin's a plutocracy because 99% of the people, it's not decentralized for them. And so like when 1% of people are controlling how it works, it's a plutocracy. That's fine. But like,
then that's one of the reasons I think that we are journalists, is because we're not going to stop asking those tough questions. I mean, we really love crypto. We love what it represents and what it could potentially do to the entire world. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to question it. We're going to blindly follow it. We need to ask that question, and we need to continue asking it every day. And if no one is going to answer it, well then fuck, at least someone needs to ask the question. And if that's got to be us, then that's great. Then like we're going to ask that.
And we're going to blindly FOMO into shit coins like the rest of you.
Yep.
And lose our money on day trades because we're fucking dumb. That's okay. That's how you know that we're one of you.
Yeah, we make some mistakes.
Because here's the thing. So like, to go back to Nano, it's true. It's like I make the mistake of like I bought in because it's like, God, I love the technology. And then I'm thinking to myself, why am I doing this? It's so fucking dumb, because if you know anything about Nano, there's like 2 developers. Mm-hmm. So one time I was in a Discord chat group with one of the guys, and this is back when they only had mainly just Colin, the main developer. And he's like, yeah, if Colin got hit by a car, Nano would just stop working because no one knows how to do it except for him. And I was like, wow, fuck, dude. Because, totally. It's kind of like the reason the IOTA never worked is because they just couldn't make it work. But like Colin figured out how to make it work, but no one else can.
Well,
and so like that's what worries me about it. But I love, I try to be supportive of stuff that I actually like. I try to be supportive of Stellar because I like that he wants to make it a nonprofit, even though it's not a nonprofit yet. But like, don't necessarily invest money in that, because that's not necessarily
Yeah, you want to support
good,
things.
smart, long-term investments.
So here's some crypto advice. Here's JJ's crypto advice corner here. If you're new,
Not
or if you're
financial
not new,
advice.
it's not financial advice. It has to do with financial stuff, but it's not financial advice. I should put this into like some sort of blog. But here's what I would say is, so you can get into crypto for the technology, right? I'm in it for the tech. Or you can get into it because you want to make some money. I think a lot of people get into it to make some money, and they feel kind of guilty doing that. And they think, but the technology is so cool. I could make technology the thing that I love. And it would justify me spending all my money on shit coins. Right? If I just spend enough time studying all the shit coins, then it will justify me spending all my money on shit coins. So this thing happens where you get really confused in your head and you start thinking like, oh my God, I love all this technology. And what happens is you start to realize how powerful crypto is. And you start to realize all of the wonderful use cases and how it could change things and how it could change the status quo. But deep down, you really want to see your wealth increase. And that is the first reason that you got into crypto. So you have a dilemma on your hands.
Yep.
And here is what I would say. And this is where it's not financial advice, but it would have really helped me when I got into crypto. And that is, when you want to buy some crypto, think about it this way. If you're in it for the money, and you can admit that to yourself, that's okay. That's perfectly okay. Like, that's awesome. But stay in it for the money and be in it for the money and know you're doing that. And if you feel guilty about that, then don't invest money. And if you decide that you like the technology, you don't need to be invested in it. You don't need to have skin in the game in order to support Nano. You don't need to have skin in the game in order to support Stellar or any of these things, because you can do all of that research and you can spend all your time learning about it, and you can let everyone know about it, and you can ask all the tough questions and all of that, but you don't have to spend all of your money and then be all stressed out about it or
spend $5 and put it in there and just be an advocate for it.
I would say even be careful doing that, because there's nothing wrong with $5, but you got to be able to know when to say when, basically. And I feel like,
$6 too much. $6 is way too much.
If you
$5 is okay.
If you want to support crypto, start a podcast about crypto. Don't spend $10,000 on crypto. It's like, that's my advice. That's JJ's advice corner on keyword crypto. Am I crazy for saying that? I don't know.
No.
Okay.
No. Hey, so I think that's a great place to end. If you liked the show, first off, we had a different intro song on this episode. It's a buddy of mine's band from New York. They were around in the early aughts, and they just got back on Spotify, and they're getting some buzz again. They're called The Velaset. We're gonna finish off the pod with the full song, so you can listen to it if you like it. They're on Spotify again. It's The Velaset. But if you like us, subscribe. Hit the thumbs up, review us, rate us, help us out. Say hi to us on Twitter, say hi to us on Facebook. We do take donations because this does cost a little bit of money, not a lot. So if you want to throw a couple Satoshis our way, we got a tipin.me thing on Twitter. We got a Patreon account. We got a Coinbase donation center to cover the $5 that we put into Nano. Just kidding. We won't use it for that. But for the people who have been sticking around, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate the questions. And let us know if you want us to talk about anything specific. If you're, because I was talking with Jackson Palmer, and he was like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about that, but I'm really glad you do. He goes, because I just hate having to fight with people on Twitter, and I love seeing you fight with people.
That's the thing.
And I get it, because some people are just tired. He works all day long, and then he does these educational videos, and he's got gripes and questions just like all of us. And some people just don't feel comfortable talking shit and pulling the tail of Bitcoin.
If you have a show, if you have an audience and you're afraid of saying something because you have to deal with that audience, then hit us up. Come on our show. You'll have a
Yeah.
different audience and a
Exactly.
much smaller audience. Get us while we're small.
Yeah, exactly. Because when
Yeah.
we're huge, we're not going to have time for people like you. Like, you're like
No,
small,
we'll have
the small
time,
people.
but our audience is just going to shit all over you. So
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.